Welcome in, everyone. Hope you have a wonderful night. I plan on entertaining us for the next however long. So, I guess what I kind of wanted to talk about was, I'm getting really frustrated with how people talk about a capitalist society and how they misunderstand what capitalism truly is. Because capitalism is, let the market decide. Well, the people are the market. And then you have all these people argue and fume over, universal basic income. I want to take it a step further. I would rather the government provide the basics, not necessarily where you can cash it out, but actually have vouchers for housing, for food, for utilities, for a phone, and I consider a phone a utility. I consider internet a utility. Water, sewer, garbage, phone, internet. These are utilities that you have to have in the modern age. And I think the government should provide those or vouchers for them. And I think companies should vie for those vouchers. There should be a competition. Let the market decide who's best. Who's the best for your voucher? And I mean, obviously the vouchers would have a maximum. I mean, you're not going to get the top tier internet, right off the bat. Same with, food and stuff. You still have to work to get the extras. But people like, oh, but people won't work and they won't get all the cool stuff. Who cares? But in reality, how many people do you think aren't going to work? How many people do you think aren't going to actually do a job? Because we're forgetting that you take all the stress out of a job. I mean, people probably be more willing to try out jobs that quote unquote nobody wants to do if they have everything if they have everything taken care of. You take the stress out of the job. Suddenly, it's like, oh man, I really don't like being an accounts representative or whatever you want to call it. So I think I'm going to switch out and figure out what I want to be. I also feel that, college education should be provided. Well, it's not even for creative jobs. Well, it's not even corporate job. I think people, if they stop worrying about how much they're going to make in a job and start worrying about what they actually want to do, who they actually want to be in their life, I think you'll find a lot more people being satisfied without having to do the high stress jobs if they can provide for themselves in a reasonable way. I mean, we worry too much about getting more than we need. And I know I've mentioned it before, but the sufficiency doctrine, finding out what it costs for you to be happy, to be sufficient, that it should be the first thing you do, is a budget for what you should be happy with. If that includes a house, a car, kids, you're going to have to budget for that. If that's just an apartment with some bros and have some fun, budget for that. There's nothing wrong with either lifestyle. And I think that's a lot of things people don't understand. Is that what somebody does with their life, as long as it's not harming you, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I mean, take the sting out of it. Who cares? Why should we worry so much about somebody else? What they're doing? I mean, we should want them to be happy. We should want them to be pleasant and nice to be around. I mean, you'll probably find that drug use goes down because people won't have to escape. Alcohol abuse goes down because people won't want to escape. And that's largely, I think, what we have a problem with right now is the escapism that is baked into everything we do. I mean, why do you think entertainment is a recession-proof industry? That should tell you everything you need to know, is people want to escape. But you know what's funny? When people are actually happy and low stress, entertainment doesn't go as well, doesn't make as much money. While entertainment might be recession proof, it's not success proof. If people are happy and having fun and able to take vacations, it's often they're not going out to the movies. They're not sitting around watching TV. They're not sitting there, doing things. They're going out to theaters. They're going out and actually having experiences. Well, I like going out to the movies. I like good movies. I also know that the industry is escapism. Yes, industry thrives in times of conflict because people want to escape. But so does the sin industry. And that's what I was talking about. Drug use, alcohol, bars, clubs, they thrive in times of conflict. It's hilarious how much money people will spend in times of conflict to escape when they keep complaining about not having money. And that's what I think true capitalism should be, is letting the market decide. You hand people the cash for the jobs they do, or the vouchers for the basics, and let those people decide if your product's worth it. Not advertising, not using tricks to trick somebody into buying something they don't really need or want. I hate modern advertising. Modern advertising is ridiculous. I mean, just think about all the mobile ads where they faked up gameplay and the game you get isn't real, the gameplay, because they're using psychological tricks to bring in customers who don't even want to play their game, because their metric is only about people who download the game, not about keeping those people. Because remember, the metric is how many downloads. How often does a video game talk about concurrent playing? How many people play on an average month? No, they just talk about downloads. Yeah, trend buying. I mean, what got me thinking about this was Labubus and how ridiculous it is, because it's just Beanie Babies all over again. We can see this in history. It's the pet rock. It's the chia pet. Throughout history, these fad things that do absolutely nothing. And that the market decides, but you're tricked into it because they're blind boxed. They're literally using, and gossip, you should hear this, gambling mechanics to get you to buy. I'm joking, because we joke a lot about you gambling in gossip. And it's ridiculous. Yes, it's a joke. It's ridiculous to be honest, that's the same thing Magic the Gathering does with their booster packs. What's funny is that they actually make more money off of pre-con decks where you know exactly what's in it. Nothing wrong with gambling mechanics. No, there's absolutely everything wrong with it, because it's manufactured scarcity. They could make an even number of all of the models or all of the stuff if it was truly worth buying. No, nothing wrong with toys. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with toys themselves. It's about using gambling mechanics. I mean, they're baking gambling mechanics into children's toys. I mean, it's a joke. It's mean, it's cruel, and it's a trick. It's a trick to get you to do something that you probably wouldn't have otherwise done. And I think it's super sad that in the state of the world we're in, that's what we have to do to get people interested. That's what we have to do to get people to buy our stuff, is we have to trick them. We have to fool them into doing it. Why? Because people don't want it otherwise. Why do you have to buy the newest iPhone or the newest cell phone, smartphone? Oh, it's got all these stuff that your last phone already had. And that the better, how much better it is only by percentages. Not only that, but, deprecating, firmware, meaning that they stop updating yours. Because, yeah, after a certain point, it does make it too expensive to keep going. But if your model says that after 5 years you have to deprecate something, you're doing your model wrong. It shouldn't cost you that much to maintain that code, because that code is cheap. That's the big thing. There's all this manufactured scarcity. Yeah, exactly. You have to come up with reasons for people to buy it. You have to force people into buying something they don't really want or need. Manufactured scarcity. There are things that are truly worth it. Like, you'd never catch me buying like a supercar or anything like that, but you might catch me buying a Maybach, which is an extremely expensive car because, last I remember, they're all hand built. They don't use machines. So everything is fit just perfectly. That's the whole point. So yeah, I'd be paying for the price of a reasonable house or a nice house for a car. But it's a car that's going to last me, and I'm probably going to pass it down to kids or maybe grandkids, because that car should last forever. Because everything's as perfect as it can be with the technology we have now. Not really, but you know what I mean. It's really good. And I think this is what a lot of people don't understand about capitalism, is that capitalism does work. We just don't have it. We talk about letting the market decide, and then these bigger corporations see that somebody's starting to buy something from a smaller corporation, so they buy the smaller corporation, and they force you to buy their crap. I mean, look up the old Tucker. There was a car company that was challenging the big three. It was called Tucker. And basically, the other three ran them out of town. Same thing happened to DeSoto. And DeSotos are still a sought-after car. And people are like, oh, well, it was folded into this. Well, yeah, Mercury was once its own car company too, before it bought them. And they kept using the Mercury name, but they were now just other Ford cars. Just like GM with Buick, Pontiac, Chevy. These were all independent car companies. Hell, Saturn was a GM company. And they forget that this manufactured competition too. I mean, like Hyundai and Kia, they're the same car, slightly different models, but they're built on the same same power plant, basically the same company, and it's not just the car industry. I mean, how many different competing magazines are out there? But there's only like 4 publishing companies that still publish magazines, if that many. We talk about competition, but I mean, internet all uses the same infrastructure, yet you have so many different companies that you can go with, but they're all using the same infrastructure. It's all coming through the same lines. You're not getting a different company. You're just paying a different company, because at the heart of it, they're probably all using the same contractors to maintain the lines. Right. And it's been that way for years. We don't have true competition anymore. And in my personal viewpoint, it's why the future hasn't happened. The predicted future of the 70s, 80s, 90s, people kept saying that the future will come, but it hasn't come because we've stopped competition. Companies no longer have to be better. They don't have to do better than their competition because they're not competing. They're working together. I mean, pay attention when Apple releases a new phone versus Samsung. They're basically the same thing. They manufacture this competition that's not really there. And that's just the way of the world today. But back to my original point is that if we actually create a true capitalist society where the market, the people, decide what's worth buying because they all have the same basically, they have all the same income, regardless of what they do. Not really, but, everybody has a certain level that they live at with a discretionary budget on top. Even the lowest wage slave at McDonald's, which is normally the stereotype, but there's cheaper places out there, makes enough money to feed themselves, to house themselves, with a little extra on the side. See, and that's what I think companies are truly scared of, is true competition. They would actually have to produce better products. They would actually have to make something that people want, not be tricked into buying. I mean, at a time when the economy is at its lowest, I'm talking about capitalism and how a true capitalist society would actually involve some level of socialism. Because you have to give the people at the base level enough so that they can actually swing the markets. And I think that's why a lot of people are kept poor, is because they can't swing the markets. They've made their capitalist society, their competition, their company so safe that they don't feel they have to do anything. Oh yeah. They keep charging more and more and you keep getting less and less. I mean, it's ridiculous in my mind that Disney is still a company. They have lost so much money over the last 5 years that I can't believe they're still around. They're failing upwards so fast, it's ridiculous. I mean, how do they do it? And that's really the questions you have to ask yourself. How are these companies staying in business? I mean, modern Hollywood has lost how much money? But they're not really, Tater, if you look at it. I mean, Disney's had to stop reporting how many subscribers they have to Disney Plus and Hulu. They've literally stopped reporting because they know it'll look bad. They know they're losing money on Disney Plus. They know they're losing money on their movies. I mean, most of their movies haven't turned a profit, and those that have haven't covered the loss from the company or the movies that have lost money because they forgot. They forgot that they need to provide a product people want, that people will buy. I mean, that's largely why companies fail. Because they're not providing something that somebody wants. I mean, they sit here and trying to convince you what you want. That's what advertising is all about. And remember that advertising is a self-feeding snake. Well, yeah. I mean, just think about it. All the streaming services, how much would you actually pay for all of that? Well, we used to get it all under one roof. It's called cable. Cable used to give us everything we wanted. Sure, it was $100 and some odd bucks a month if you wanted everything, but you got it. Now, streaming, you have to, a little bit over here, a little bit over there. When in reality, don't just let me buy what I want to buy. It's like, oh, I really want to watch, we'll say it's a Disney product. I really want to watch The Mandalorian. I'll buy the season of Mandalorian. Boom, done. I buy it. I watch the season. Oh, I want to buy the season of Stranger Things. Buy that. Watch it. I was like, oh, well, I didn't really like that much, so I'm not going to buy the next one. Well, but they can't have that. They need you to keep buying. Remember. You will own nothing and be happy about it. This is literally what companies have said. Tater, what are you going to do when they stop producing CDs, physical media, even though people are screaming for it? People are screaming for physical media. You may not hear it really, but I think a lot of people understand that that's really what they want. They want to go back to late 90s, early 2000s, and, people had walls of DVDs. They had suitcases full of DVDs, in sleeves and all organized and everything like that. Me personally, I think we need to be able to buy and drop. And what I mean by that is buy it and drop it onto our hard drives or drop it onto a thumbstick. Oh, but people could trade it. They could trade it in the VHS and DVD eras. Don't give me this crap that you can't make money off of that model. Like, that is utter garbage. It is utter garbage to tell me that you can't make money. You guys got to be the powerhouses you are when physical media was easy to copy and duplicate. Yeah. They can make money from it all the time. They can make money from you. Excuse me, sorry. Oh, I think a new wave of punk is already on the rise, and I think people don't really understand what that's going to mean. I think people are going to start DIYing their own physical media. I mean, it's really not that hard. You just have to have the tech to do it. And smarter brains than mine are going to start building it. You know, these companies are so worried about somebody stealing from them that they're not producing a good enough product to steal. It didn't have to. They let it die. They wanted it to die. In fact, people didn't want it to die. Many people, like me, remember that there were better items than Blu-ray. You know, that, hell, Nintendo produced something that you would never believe. The 8-centimeter mini discs that they used in the GameCube. These things were tiny, but they held so much. You know, I mean, mini discs were and still are, I think, the future. We just need to use lab-created materials like gemstones to put the media on so it's more permanent rather than plastic and metal. You know, the metal foil that was in CDs and DVDs. We need to use lab-created stuff. Yes. Well, now we also have, you know, USB keys that can hold hundreds of gigs. I think there's even some USB keys that can hold terabytes. You know, they're a little bit chunkier, but you can make them. And the simple fact is, I mean, that could hold a lot of library of movies and TV shows and music. I mean, I run my system and it's only got 2 terabytes. You know, would I love to have more memory? Hell yeah. I actually could use some more. But I don't need it. And that's the thing, I think a lot of companies, they're so used to the infinite expansion, which should not be baked into capitalism. But they forget that there's a saturation in market. You can only ask so much. And they're currently squeezing more and more out of us. And they're forcing us to. I mean, what? Disney just released that they're going to be hiking all of their prices when they just had a catastrophic cancellation of services just earlier this week. Or maybe it was end of last week. It was somewhere in that neighborhood. You know, all of their prices are going up $2 to $3 more. You know, and they've got so many different choices. It's ridiculous. You know, they're trying to milk you for as much as they can. And the fact is they would rather you go on an advertised tier because they can make more money off of an advertised tier. Because really, you should be only paying like $2 to $5 per month if you're on an advertised tier. Hey, what's up, Jade? Welcome in, welcome in. You know, and I think a lot of these streaming, the only streaming service I am absolutely happy to have is YouTube Premium. All right, Tater, you have a good night, and I love you, kiddo. I find it absolutely hilarious that people forget that there was a time. What's up, Raven? You're up late for you? Well, no, not really. Glad to see you in, though. Yes, sleep well. Remember to be excellent to people. Oh. What was it you said in the stream? Oh, come on. That was goofy. What was it? That's right. The podiatrist one. What was the full quote, though? My podiatrist took my gallbladder. That's right. I went for a mani and got a pedi. Wait, that sounds, that could be taken wrong, and I'm not going to say that again. Helped a bit. You helped a lot. You literally, reminded us. One of us would. So you basically, came up with the key to the memory vault. Yes, there you go. You deserve those, Infinite. Good job. Right? That could have been a hassle. Of course, I could have told you it was about the last half hour, 45 minutes. But it's still a half hour, 45 minutes to scrub through. And that's not as much fun. But often when people talk about, to go back to my previous conversation, often when people talk about, UBI, universal basic income, that kind of stuff, because there's been several possible solutions. Now, I don't know if they would actually work. Don't get me wrong. You don't want people to work? It's like, well, no, I actually don't want people to work. Not have to anyway. I mean, especially when we live in a society right now where so many jobs are being taken away. I think people should want to work. And that's where another part of capitalism comes in. People should want to work for you. You should have a workplace that people want to work at, that people want to do. Yeah, it gives a sense of purpose. I mean, just like in the 1950s and 60s, people, gave a hard time to housewives who literally performed a function. They were taking care of the house, making sure that food was there. I mean, they had to do the grocery shopping. In a 2-income family, tell me how easy it is it to keep your house clean, food on the table that's good, home cooked, and, to keep your job. If you both work away from home, and even those that work at home, it can be difficult. And yet people look down on a traditional housewife or house spouse because it rhymes and it's fun to say, house spouse. I think people are ridiculous with it. And I think, yeah, spend time with the kids, homework, PTA meetings, sports. I could keep going. Extracurriculars, yes. Well, not only that, but how do you actually take a day off if you're a house spouse? You're sick. You're in bed. You want to stay in bed, but you're sick. How many sick days do you get as a house spouse? How many days off do you get as a house spouse? Now, these are questions I can answer. I can answer very well. Not many, because you pull yourself out of bed because the kids need you. So you go to work. Your kid's homesick. Guess what? You're getting the same pay for doing more work. And I think a lot of people forget how much it goes into. Oh, hell yeah. Well, think about it. People could volunteer for things they actually want to do. Oh, I really love this park, but it looks like it needs some lawn care and maybe some fresh flowers. What if I just, apply to be a gardener there and actually do some of that? Meeting with a UBI, you could just do that. It's like, okay, I want, submit a plan because you have an idea of how the garden would look or should look. Or even better, a community food garden. You know, how many community stressors do we have now with all of these otherness and all this other crap could be alleviated if you knew your neighbors, if you actually interacted with them, if you actually took pride in your community. How easy would it be to find common ground? I know that's a foreign concept, but it does exist. We don't always have to agree. Oh, yeah. Well, exactly. Nature preserves, going and doing stuff. Let alone knowing that it's not going to kill you to take a vacation. But companies can't have a UBI because then they'd actually have to step up and provide a good place to work, or else people wouldn't work there. I think that's why all of the news and press and everything against a UBI really is companies absolutely being terrified of actually having to reform their way of life. Oh, exactly. Not only, don't forget that there are certain enzymes and everything in the soil, in nature, that humanity actually needs. We actually need to go out and mow the lawn. We may not like it, but we actually need to. We need to dig in the dirt occasionally because it's also good for us. Nature actually provides things we need. Oh my God. Not to mention that, technology actually strips certain things away from you the longer you're around it. Well, I'm not sure about modern screens, but I know back in the old day, the CRTs, they would actually destroy parts of your skin, if I remember right. Not like truly, but I mean, it would actually do something to your skin, so you were actually less resistant to solar radiation. That's why skin cancer got to be such a big deal, but nobody wanted to listen to why. Gee, who knew? Having a radiation gun pointed at your face and body that you're sitting in front of for 4 to 6 hours a day after work would do something to you. Just beaming yourself with radiation. Yeah, that's a great idea. Plus, I swear those things work on magic. Every time I look into how old school analog technology worked, I'm just looking at it going, how did we even do that? How was that the first thing we came up with? But yeah, with a UBI, I think it's that companies would have to reform. They'd have to make products that people want because now people can be more choosy. They'd actually have to have I know that sounds very familiar. They don't own me. They just own the only thing that's keeping me alive. I'm going to have to look up that song because I feel like I've heard it or something very similar. Because, obviously, I am not the first person to come up with this. This isn't some radical new idea. This is an idea that's been around for ages. And yet people keep fighting it. Yeah, they say that's just the way the real world works. Everything's supposed to hurt. They idolize self-sacrifice and demonize self-worth. And all the while, they'll just sit back and say, why no one wants to work? Oh, God, yeah. Don't forget that why no one wants to work is literally said by people who barely work. You really think Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos are putting in 8 to 12-hour days? Oh, they say they do. But when you actually look at it, their 8 to 12-hour days, regards 2 hours. Hey, no, do not apologize because that is exactly what I'm talking about. Keep in mind that every, C-suite boss says, oh, I work, 12 to 14 hours days. And then when they release their schedule, you're like, wait a minute. You have 2 hours here scheduled for lunch. You have 3 hours here scheduled for like a gym and swim. You're counting this as a work schedule. That's not a work schedule. That's time off. Your actual work day, when you compress it down, is 4 hours. Yet you're telling me I don't want to work? Who's forced to work 8 to 10 to 12 hours? No. That's BS. That is absolute BS. I work. I mean, I'm doing this, and I'm not trying to shame anybody here. Okay, that's not what I'm trying to say at all. It shouldn't be. I just want to qualify that I'm not complaining. I like doing what I do. I spent 3 hours this morning just recording. I spent another hour just editing, if not longer. I didn't really keep track of it. I spent another 2.5, 3 hours streaming with Raven, Ghost, and Patience. And now I'm doing another 2 hours here. So let's see, 3 plus, we'll just round it up to 3. I think it was close to 3. So 6 hours plus another 2 for 8. 8 hours plus the editing that I'm going to have to do. We'll put another 2 hours on top of that. I'm going to be working about 10 hours today just on this. Because I'm passionate about it, I'm willing to put that time in. I'm willing to do this for little to no pay because I love doing it. So the last place you worked, there was one time where the stock price took a hit and the CEO claimed that things were going to be tough. And that he was right there beside us in the dirt and impacted by no. Then he showed up to work the next day in his Batmobile replica car. Well, yeah. I am Batmobile replica car. Which era, might I ask? We talking the Tim Burton era Batmobile? We talking the Christopher Nolan Batmobile? Because with the Christopher Nolan Batmobile, that guy had way too much money. Tim Burton's just a major customization of the chassis. Christopher Nolan is literally a whole custom from the bottom down. Jeez. That's 100,000 to 150,000 just off the top of my head to have a customized. Jeez. Right. I mean, I get it that it wasn't as militarized, but I mean, yeah, your boss wasn't in the dirt with you. I mean, I'm sure. Yeah. I used to make fun of this guy that because Lincoln for a while produced a truck. I can't remember. It was like the Lincoln Mark LT or something like that. I kept asking the guy, so when are you going to haul something with your truck? And he's like, why would I haul that? This is a luxury truck. And I said, yeah, exactly. There's no point to it. If I'm spending $250,000 on a truck, I better be able to tow a tank with it. I better be able to throw anything in the back and, not get scratched. That paint job, that body. Yeah, luxury truck. Well, Lincoln's a luxury brand and they made a truck. Just like the Cadillac Escalade or the Avalanche, basically, yes, they kind of look nice, but they were supposed to be luxury trucks, luxury SUVs. Yeah, that's like saying I bought a luxury toilet. Unless that has a heated seat, because nothing's worse on my butt than when I, sit down on a cold toilet seat. I feel for you, ladies. I really do. I miss my minivan. I grew up in minivans. We had GMC. Oh, God. Yeah. From what I understand, bidets are supposed to be really nice and cleaner. I mean, I miss my minivan because it was like a truck with a canopy that could also haul people. Growing up, minivans were so nice. Just me on my Gucci rain boots. I do not understand luxury brands for everyday things. Well, I just don't understand luxury brands. See, I learned to drive in a minivan. We had a GMC Safari. We actually had two different models. And my first car that I drove outside of our Cadillac Cimarron, which we treated like the beater it was the GMC Safari. This thing went off-road. This thing went through sand dunes. This thing taught 3 kids how to drive and survived. 3 accidents. I mean, that thing was a tank. Filipino friend told you about the taboo? Tabo? I'm not sure what that is. What's a tabo? Must be some kind of, I mean, if we're talking minivans. But I mean, like I saw the VW minibuses. Those things looked great, the brand new ones. But I guess they were garbage. I don't know. You know, it's like we forget that people want something that's going to last at least 5 years. You know, let me pay it off before I have to trade it in, before I have to get a new one. You know, and I mean, that's why I like my Kias. The last Kia we had, the first Kia we had lasted 13 years. And it was a Kia Spectra 5. You know, it had the rear hatch. That thing lasted. Oh, my Dodge Caravan. I had a Dodge Caravan. Till the transmission stopped transmissioning. Yeah. I liked my Dodge Caravan. It was fun to drive. Yeah. I mean, if it still works, what's the problem? Now, if you give me loyalty and want me to trade in and get a newer one, why not? And besides, you know, hybrids are making a comeback because electrics just aren't what they're supposed to be. I mean, so the Prius has always been a better car. If you look at the statistics, even with the issue that it had with the throttle and whatever else that was going on, the Prius was always a better car. You know, I just didn't make the switch to an electric or hybrid because I didn't think enough information was out there for them to actually be better. At least I knew the issues with a gas rig. Yeah. I didn't want the payment either. I didn't want to get rid of Gozer. I liked my little Gozer. I liked my little Chevy Spark. And I know I've told the story before, but just for those of you who've forgotten, I called it Gozer because the paint job was toasted marshmallow. And the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters was inhabited by the spirit of Gozer. Just saying. I just, you know, it got totaled. Well, I did. Yeah, I love my Spark. It got totaled and they don't make them anymore. I will tell you one thing. Even if you paid off your car, keep full insurance on it if you can afford it. Because that is the only reason why I was able to. Yeah, they don't make Sparks anymore, or else I would have got another one. Last year was 24, if I remember correctly. 24 or 25. That's why we have 2 Kia Souls now. But yeah, to give you an idea, I bought that thing in 2020. My Spark had the sunroof, you know, the full infotainment center. I loved that thing. I never wanted to get rid of it. I took that thing back and forth, you know, from Washington, Nevada, visiting my uncle. It drove me across the United States. I absolutely. Hey, nice one, Jade. You know, I drove that thing. I loved my Spark. And it got totaled. You know, it sucks. But because I kept full insurance on it, even though I had paid it off. They gave me like $14K back on it after being totaled. You understand how many miles was on that thing? And I still got $14K back. That's how good of a car a Chevy Spark was. I think I only paid $19 for it. 18, 19, somewhere in that neighborhood. I mean, when I bought it, it only had like 300 miles on it because it was also a show car, you know, the dealer car. I absolutely loved that car. You know, which is funny because I'm a big guy, but yet I fit in that one just fine. Yeah, see, yeah, there you go. And I, you know, if you can afford it, dealership didn't want it. I don't know how come we got the money. Well, yeah, that was the same thing with me when I went to buy mine. The only reason why I paid 18, I think, was the life of the loan. It was 18K. For mine is because it had all the upgrades. You know, it had the sunroof. It had the upgraded sound system. It had all of this stuff. And, you know, I just wanted this white one because it was really cool. Oh, wow. No, mine was electric, everything but the seats. I hate electric seats. I hate them. See, that was our first Spark. Had the manual windows. But that one ended up meeting an elk, and, well, my wife survived the accident. The car did not. And I don't know. It's just one of those things that when you make something, oh, God, no. Oh, manual windows. Yeah, the elk bounced off the car, got up, and ran off. Elk are hard to take down. Elk are the size of a horse, if you've never seen one. You know, not to be confused with a moose, which is the size of an elephant. Not really, but I mean, moose are bigger than horses by a lot. Elk are about the same size as a horse. So imagine taking patience, you know, Spark and hitting a horse with it. I will say that the Spark made it all the way up to where the wife's work site was, which is up a mountain called Mount Rainier, which you've done stories about, Raven. Or at least I think you have. And if you haven't, you should, because there's a lot of good stories at Mount Rainier. But yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, you know, which is not an easy drive. And she started slowing down because she saw the elk. Then the elk moved off of the road, so she started speeding back up to the freeway speed as the elk decided to change its mind and come right out in front of her. But yeah, that egg-shaped exterior just rolled it up and over. Or no, it bounced off. That's right. The elk bounced off, got up and ran off. Didn't even break a leg. I mean, not that I'd want it to, but you know, it's impressive. Ah, okay. Oh my God, I know which one you're talking about too. Local Connect. Something like that. I can't remember. It changed names several times over the years. But I think the parent company was out of Toledo because they decided Toledo, Washington, which they decided to make their own phone company. Rainier Connect. That's right, Rainier Connect. Or something to that effect. It used to be Local Connect or local, you know, it was a local ISP. Which initially they were actually pretty good. My math teacher's brother worked for them, which is how I ended up beta testing AOL 2.0, but that's a totally different, thing. Yeah, just think about that. AOL 2.0 was based on, child support. Oh, of course they outsource their customer tech support. Toledo was, the parent company, Toledo Phone Company, TTI, I think is what they called themselves eventually. Yeah, that sounds exactly like what they would do. I knew the family that owned the company. Yeah, they lived on a nice house on the hill that literally tried to get me arrested because I was driving around looking at Christmas lights on the high-priced hill. It's Christmas. We had a little bit of skip of snow, and if you drive up on this ridge, you could see like the whole town and all the different houses with their Christmas lights. Like it was this perfect spot. And they actually had their not community watch, crime watch people come out and yes, exactly. Ew, the pores, which is even funnier when you know that I was driving I was rebuilding and remodeling a 69 Chevy C10. I had rebuilt the engine, but I hadn't repainted it, and one of the doors had a big dent in it because, well, a 69 Chevy C10 is really hard to find doors for. And, I went up on Knob Hill, on one of the knob hills around there. Which, if you don't know, a 69 Chevy C10 is a straight six engine, not a slant six, a straight six. So it's really easy to work on the engine. And it had a 3-gear transmission on the tree. First, second, third, and reverse. Right? And you do it with your kids still on Christmas Eve. It's still trying to say, don't it? I still don't. Nope, I ain't going out and looking at Christmas lights with my kids. I want Christmas lights. We got Christmas lights at home. I plugged in the incandescent in the bathroom. They can flick that on and off. See, it flickers. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent. But my ad will be coming up soon, so I'll see you all in about 5 minutes. That sounds like bonding. Actually, also the Borst Park where I lived had a drive of lights where they'd put all these lights up in the park and you could drive through it. It was like a drive-through diorama of lights. Yeah. Good night, bro. You have a good one. But you're talking about a kid that grew up in but in Montana. And we had this sledding hill that New Year's Day, all the high school kids would be prepping the sledding hill. And we had just like a normal entry area that had a nice, gentle sledding hill. And then we had what we call the suicide run, which was like a lot steeper. And they would bring buckets of water and dump it over it. So it was just this frozen mass. So you could catch a real lot of speed in like the first 10 feet before it kind of leveled off. Well, I was about 5, and I convinced my dad for him and I to go on the suicide run. But, he was with me, so he was holding on to me, or I was holding on to him. And at the end of the run, see, it kind of curved this gentle slowdown curve. But that curve was at a railroad tracks. So you know how railroad tracks hump up, right? Well, my dad and I's combined mass was a lot faster. And also we used to build our own custom sleds because my dad worked for a plywood plant and they use these Teflon runners to slide the plywood on so it wouldn't damage the wood. Well, once they got to a certain thinness, they had to replace them. So my dad would just take those, nobody cared if he grabbed them, and we'd use them as runners on the sled. Teflon on the bottom of a sled. You ever watch National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation? Yeah, yeah. Hey, what's up, Ghosty boy? So I'm on my dad's back with my arms around his neck. I'm like I said, I'm like 5. We go down the suicide run, pick up a huge amount of speed. That gentle curve acted like a ramp. Disney show Teflon on ice. So I got launched off because my dad managed to turn the sled just enough, but we hit a bump and because it curved up. Well, yeah, anyway, I got launched off. My dad hit the tracks. I got launched to the other side and buried in a snowdrift. It took them a minute to find me because I was lost. And they were dragging me out. Thought I was crying, probably thought I had broke something, but no, I was laughing and asked if we could do it all over again. Can we go again? Not realizing that dad had broke the sled, probably should have gone to the doctor's office because he had a bruise down his right side that was purple from just under his shoulder to his hip. Like, he probably bruised ribs, if not cracked them. Oh, that's fine, Ghost. You're fine. Yeah, his entire side, because he broke the sled with it. Because he was trying to roll in such a way to take the brunt of the impact away from me. You know, he was trying to get me to a safe way. So he took the brunt of the impact. And instead, you know, it ended up launching me up and over the railroad tracks and into a drift of snow where they had to dig me out. And I thought it was the best thing ever. It was so fun. It was just total fun. Yeah. You know, unfortunately, I haven't lived in a place where we could do that again. I mean, for my kids. I would have loved to have built, because I had a few design ideas for sleds from my kids. You know, a little bit safer, you know, put your feet first, not your head first. Because that's the way we went, was head first. Yeah, not a smart idea. Those sleds were designed to go down on your belly. No, I never got a concussion. I don't even think my dad got the concussion. He just got bruised ribs. But I mean, that's what we grew up with. I mean, that was New Year's Day. The whole like block would get together. I knew what you meant. I knew you didn't mean concession. Like we had like a bonfire down on one side where you could go and warm up. People had strung a rope. Well, that's kind of the point of concessions, right? You know, one side's conceding things, the other side's conceding things. That's how concessions work. Although also a concession stand is really good too, because that means snackies. And I love a good concession stand hot dog. And I know they are the absolute worst for you, but for some reason, I love the flavor of them. I love hot dogs. Don't take that out of context. Snack square, yeah, exactly. See, my favorite was when you can get like a concession stand hot dog. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I wanted to go again. They never, because I was so young, they didn't let me run. You know, they didn't let me go down other than on the saucers again, but not the homemade ones. And I wasn't old enough. And by the time I was old enough, we didn't make them anymore because we didn't live in a place that actually had sledding hills. Mildly frustrating. But in Washington, I remember when we got a really bad snowstorm. Ice cream. Anyway, we got a really bad snowstorm, and I used one of our old totes to make blocks of snow, you know, packed it all up, and I made a snow wall on our porch. So, funnily enough, it actually blocked a lot of the heat, and my heating bill went down. Or it blocked a lot of the wind, and my heating bill went down. It was actually cheaper because I put that up. So, just so just a little bit of extra. I'm not talking about it. You guys are talking about it. Trust me, I always want ice cream. I love ice cream. In fact, I always want ice cream at the most inappropriate times. Like on a hot summer day. You know what I want? You know what my dumbass brain wants? Spicy chili. I want a good spicy black bean and beef chili. You know when I want ice cream? Cold day. Oh, pecan pie. So my wife knows that one of my favorite pies is pecan pie. She actually spent the time to make a homemade pecan pie. Don't get me wrong, it was super good. Absolutely wonderful. And I told her I really appreciated it, but I also saw how much work goes into making a homemade pecan pie. And I told her just next time buy one. Because that's a lot. Oh, that's mean. Yeah, so grounded. Ice cream on a cold day will always confuse you. You're just not a big, yeah. See, I don't get it either. My wife doesn't get it because I'm one of those guys that the colder it is, the colder, the warmer I get. Like my body just starts kicking up heat. When I lived in northern Nevada, it had to be like -2, -3 degrees. Right. And I decided to test a theory I had. So I went down in our backyard. I sat down in a pair of shorts, no socks, no shoes, no coat. And I sat there cross-legged and meditated for a while just to see how long I could stand it. Stand the cold. I don't know how long I was out there because when you're properly meditating, you lose track of time. I mean, that's kind of part of the point. You shouldn't be paying attention to time. And I just got kind of connected, blah, blah, blah. And when I came back to myself, I realized, okay, it's probably long enough. I got up and there was a foot circle around me of melted snow and ice. My body had kicked up energy and heat so much that I had created this bubble of heat around me. I don't really, cold wasn't in my blood when I was a kid. Well, time's relative. The longer time you spend with your relatives, the longer time it takes. I mean, what? What is time really? Discrete moments that you should really appreciate as they go by. But we always forget to appreciate the ones that go by. Man, I need to find that essay again. But yeah, sure, whatever it was just, I'm not trying to say I'm like some super guy or something like that. It's just, I was raised in Montana, cold, -1, -1 to -5 isn't that cold to me. I don't, cold doesn't bother me. Really, real hot doesn't bother me anymore either. I mean, outside temperature isn't much. I think it's just, due to that I have so much insulation, I regulate my own temperature. As long as the temperature is consistent, I guess. I don't do rapid changes in the yeah, I literally intentionally did not say that. Or tried really hard not to say that. I implied it heavily. That's why I stuttered and said the cold didn't, yeah. Yeah. I realized after I started it, but whatever. The fact is that temperatures, once it gets about 100 degrees, it just stops mattering. I mean, when I was in Southern California, I walked 5 miles one way in 110. Yeah, EXO earned that. Yes. I don't know. I love weather. I hate when weather drags on too long. Like, I think that's one of the things I don't like about Central Texas is that it just stays hot. It rains. Yeah, the rain was nice today. I'll give you that. I keep forgetting that we actually live relatively close. Relatively. Yeah, I had a nice thunderstorm this morning. It actually woke me up. Oh, no, I wasn't going to school. I rode a bus to school. That bus took an hour and a half. But no, I was walking to my friend's house. And no, it wasn't, it was just 110-ish degrees. I had a 5-gallon bottle of water on my back with a giant straw, one of those Camelback straws. Heat wave today. No, our heat finally broke, but it'll be back up in the 90s tomorrow. Yeah, I walked to the school in snow. I think I told you about that. Well, you needed to stay hydrated, so I had a 5-gallon bottle of water on my back. And it was mostly empty by the time I got there. I'd always swap my empty for one of their full and walk back. And I always made sure that it was one from the garage, which was slightly cooler temperature than outside, because I'll tell you one thing. You never, ever, ever drink cold water on a hike. Yeah, what is heat to you, Ghost? Okay, if you really want to look it up, Nine Tails, I lived in the Mojave Desert. Where I actually lived was Cal City, or California City. California City, at the time I lived there, had the most undeveloped landmass of any city in California. So when you went to the city limit sign, it was still a half hour to where I got dropped off. Or not a half hour. It was still a half hour by normal car drive to get to where people lived. But the center of the city was still like another 15 minutes away because it was all in a long line. Yeah, just you want it slightly cooler than what you are. Yeah, well, the Mojave Desert actually sits on the edge of Death Valley. So, I mean, we weren't as hot as... Yeah. Why do you have a 20-minute walk to your car? You need a car to get to your car. Maybe that's what happened to my hair. The humidity ruined it. So it just didn't want to come back. Like, you need a car to get yourself an e-bike just to get to your car. 20-minute walk to your car? Is that the college campus? Jeez. Oh, I absolutely prefer dry heat. Don't want to know the walks you take to get to work? What, do you have an hour-long walk to get to work? Buy a bike. Yeah, I was going to say hour. Right? Buy a bike. Well, or just a regular bike, get some leg exercise in there too. I used to ride a bike up Malala Hill, which was like a 10 or 13% grade. Uphill. It wasn't uphill both ways, Rando. I'm not my grandpa. It was uphill only one way. Going home was hilarious. Nice little scooter. Yeah. I mean, just don't get the one wheel. I hear they can be really dangerous in certain conditions, like riding them. Because, I mean, come on. A powered singular wheel that you're standing on either side of, how could this go wrong? I mean, they are absolutely safe. No, not a unicycle. There's actually like a powered motor skateboard basically thing that's called a one wheel. I'm not sure what Incelo Ayudame. I know I'm not pronouncing that right. I don't know what that means. I don't think it's good because Jesus Christo before anything does not mean anything good. I mean, unless you're actually saying a prayer. Help me? Okay, what do you need help with, Jed? I know you're actually responding to what it means. It's fine. You guys take me too seriously sometimes. I mean, I do know that I can like deliver things pretty deadpan too. Which is why I generally try to tell you I'm making a joke. So you know when I'm joking and when I'm actually being serious. But yeah, you know, I mean, see, and this is why 18, 19. Yeah, so get a bike. And I will tell you, Ghost, a bike may not seem like that much of a big difference, but it would cut that hour and 15 to hour and 30 down by quite a lot. Right? Get your driver's license, dude. Get a car. Nah, get a bike. Bike. I mean, if you're already used to walking, get a bike. Yeah, I will tell you though that on my way home from work one time down that Malala Hill, you guys can look it up. It's actually pretty steep. I can't remember what the grade is, but if I remember right, it was like 10 to 13% grade. I rode a bike up that, and I rode a bike down it. That is a lot of walking. But I will say that when you're on your feet at work like that, yes, it's tiring. Yes, it's hard, but it's different than just like being on your feet. Like standing behind a cash register for 8 hours a day, 10 times worse than actually having to move. But going down one day from work, I actually got a speeding ticket on a bike, on a bicycle. And the speed limit down that hill was 35. I was going like 45, 50 on a bike. Oh, God. Yeah, see, and when you can't move, you're like 4 to 5 hours on your feet. I hate that. Do you at least have reasonable mats? Because I know a lot of companies did that and then they stopped doing it. But I mean, the rubber mats make everything better. If not, get yourself some damn good shoes and some damn good insoles. They will save you a ton of aches and pains later in life. If you're going to spend that much time on your feet, you need to spend that much money on your shoes and on your feet, I should just say. Oh, Ghost is Ghost. Get yourself a bike, man. I mean, you can buy them cheap. I mean, just a cheap Walmart bike could be better than anything. Plus, they're very simple mechanically. You don't need like a big, shifter and all that. Just get a basic BMX. We all have our own burdens to bear. You're right. Get a unicycle. No. Do you know how dangerous those things are? I mean, did you ever watch what happened to Peter Griffin when he tried to ride one down the stairs? Just a basic bike. I'm just saying, I mean, especially since you can get them pretty cheap. I mean, if you have a pawn shop now, you should be able to get one really cheap. And again, they're basic, very basic. I would also suggest if you're going to invest in a bike, the best thing I ever bought for myself was the solid inner tube. You're going to get one now? Right? Well, and see, that's why I liked the bike, is because the bike I would do before my shift. Unrepairable. There is no bike that's unrepairable unless you've actually bent the frame. I used to build bikes in junior high. What's wrong with it? Because if you bent the forks, you can buy new forks. Well, in what way? The front forks, the rear? Did you have shocks? Yeah, no doubt, dude. And true. I mean, also, I mean, I don't know what they are anymore, but I used to buy, you know, is it a shifter? Is it like a multi-speed bike, like a mountain bike or 10 speed, whatever you want to call them? Because the tires keep digging into the metal means that you bent your rim or you bent the axle, or you're not putting the tire on evenly. Which also would explain why the shifter keeps falling off, because something's not even. Your derailleur probably needs adjusted. Too bad I'm not there. I could probably fix it for you, or at least make it work for a while. Just saying. Like I said, I used to build bikes. I used to go to garage sales and buy frames and get the cranks and get, you know, I've hand packed the bearings in the pedal crank. I have repaired chains with the chain tool, popped it out, you know, got it tightened. You know, I absolutely hate shifter bikes to repair, but they can be done, but they're just so finicky. That's why I prefer just a regular 1-speed BMX. 10 times easier to fix. I mean, if the chain's falling off, you just stretch the chain back a little bit. You know, you just loosen up your back tire, pull it back a little bit till the chain's tight, then tighten it down. Sometimes that requires 2 people. If your tire's digging into the side, it means it's not aligned properly. You have your axle shifted one way or the other. Or your rear forks have bent. And the forks are the part that holds the bike tire on. You have front forks and rear forks. I'm just saying. All right, you have a good night, XO. No, that's what happened when the tires fell off of my bike. Yes, I know you're talking about the pop and lock. Ha, ha, giggity. No, and I know what you mean. I mean, the problem is that I've fixed bikes. I've done a lot of that, so I know how to do it. I mean, it's been a long time. I probably would be rusty at it initially. But I mean, I had a trick bike that the crank powered both forward and backward. Like you could go backward on the bike just by pedaling backwards. It had what was known as slides. So you know how you have the rear pegs and the front handlebars where people can stand and do tricks. Mine had these smooth, hard, plastic, round parts that you could literally lay the bike down and it would slide on those. Yeah, I did a lot of fun tricks on my bike. It had the gooseneck that you could spin the handlebars all the way around without tightening, you know, without screwing up the brake cable. Yeah, at one point in my childhood, I wanted to be a BMX trickster. And it was all because my parents mistakenly bought the wrong bike for me. A bike that wasn't... You know, that's funny, Ghost. I just realized that bike was called the Raleigh Ghost. It was by a bike company called Raleigh. and the model was Ghost. I just remembered that. That's hilarious. That actually, I'm sorry, that shut me up for a second because it was like, wait a minute. Yeah, one of my best bikes, like my favorite bike that I ever had as a kid, was called the Ghost. Nice one, Nine Tails. Oh, no, it was just a name, Nine Tails. You don't have to take things so literally. Well, instead of Auto Man, it would be Bike Man. Nice. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of fun stuff, right? We were just meant to know Ghost. Like, I hadn't told that story about the friggin' Raleigh bike I had for so long. I forgot that it was called the Raleigh Ghost. Until now. Which I just find hilarious. I don't know. I mean, I know we were talking about, how to make things better. And I think we're ending, not ending. I mean, I'm not going yet. I still got quite a bit of time. Been always here. Ooh. Yes, exactly. You spelled Ben wrong, by the way. It's capital Ben. Because Ben is always here. Ooh. Ooh, that's what you need to do, Ghost. You need to make your own ketchup. Call it Ben sauce. And because you're Ghost, you need to spice it with Ghost chilies. So it's ketchup and Ghost chilies. So it's, I don't know. I thought it was funny. I'd eat it. I like spicy ketchup. Jalapeno ain't spicy enough. Ghost pepper's getting there. Yeah, it would be totally easy thing to do, too. I mean, powdered ghost pepper is really easy. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I mean, it's just, I like bikes. I mean, I grew up on bikes. I loved bikes. And when I was going to college, I decided not to drive a car back and forth. I decided to get a bike. And so I had to wait for a special bike because of my size. It was a Giant, is what the bike company was called. And it was an extra large frame. This thing cost me, I was going to college. So it was like, I invested like $600 at that time. I mean, this is the early 2000s. Into the bike, plus another $250. You have a good night, Rando. And I had invested like another $250 in bags to take my school books in, where it actually had this rear thing that I could just pop and slide it off. So I had my school books with me. It was actually really cool. The one time I forgot, because I didn't have any way to lock it up at the apartments, because the apartments I lived at didn't have a bike lock place. So I had to park it on my porch. And so what I did is I had this long cable lock that I would loop through the tires and through the crank and lock. So if you did, I mean, you could pick up the bike and walk away with it, but you weren't getting anything out of it. You'd have to cut. I mean, you could cut it apart at your own leisure. It was the best I could do at the time. The one time I forgot to unlock it or to lock it up, somebody stole it. Somebody stole my freaking bike. I don't think they understood that technically if they had gotten caught, it would have been grand theft. Because the state I lived in had just dropped it that grand theft was below $1,000 and the bike's value was a little over $1,000. because I got it on a deal. I was so mad because I loved that bike. I used to get on it and go riding. I mean, I had to order that bike special and I had to wait for it to come into the bike shop, like the actual bike shop, because it was a special order. They didn't just carry bikes like that. And, you know, I was starting to get back into shape. You know, I was riding back and forth to school, going to college, you know, that kind of thing. And I'd even gotten my buddy into it. And so much so, he did what's called the STP, or Seattle to Portland run, which is, I don't want to call it a bike race. It's just like this charity or just thing people do where they ride from Seattle to Portland and back. It's a long bike ride and it takes about a week for the average person to get through. Or no, I think it's just Seattle to Portland, not back. I think that's why it's called the STP. I think you can choose to go back, but the true finish of it is just Seattle to Portland, which is basically 400 miles, 250 miles. I can't remember how long it is, but it's a long distance. And he, you know, I had helped inspire somebody else to get into biking, which I thought was rather cool. But I'm still annoyed that my bike got stolen. And even worse is that, you know, I was on my way to work, which I worked at a movie theater late night, and I saw a guy literally riding my bike because, I mean, it was a special order. I knew that bike. And I pull over to the side of the road. I call the cops, not an emergency number, but dispatch. I call them and tell them, like, yeah, you know, I reported my bike stolen such and such days ago, and I just saw the guy drive by me. Well, how do you know it was your bike? I said, because it was a special order bike. There's only one of those in town right now. Well, how do you know that? Because I talked to the owner of the store, like, you know, the cop should have done to find out how many bikes may have been. I have the matching serial number, you know, because this came with a bunch of paperwork. I have all the serial numbers, you know, just like I gave you in my police report. And I just watched him bike down the road. It took a lot in me to not turn around and follow him. But I knew for a fact that that could potentially escalate things to a place I didn't want to go. Because I don't know if that guy actually stole that bike from me or if he bought it from the person that stole it from me. And I knew in the position I was in that I was mad enough that I just sat there, I calmed down a bit, and then I went to work. Never saw the bike again. Cops never even tried. Because, you know, cops have better things to do. And I think that's one of my biggest frustrations with, like, say, police forces, is that they push these, like, big things, but they're not willing to secure a neighborhood. You know, oh, we always got to go to the top. It's like, yeah, but if you take out the little guys, the top can't function because they don't have enough people. You know, let alone that, you know, I don't know how many of you are, you know, in the legal system, but the legal system lets people go I don't know how many times. You know, let alone, I think we need to have different layers or levels of cops. I want the old beat cop back, like the literal foot patrol in high traffic areas, high crime areas. You know, we need that back. Oh, yeah. Well, the problem is that we give time for stupid stuff. You know, and we don't police the right things. I mean, hell, half of your criminals in, you know, your basic jails, your basic prisons are there because of dumb laws, stupid stuff. And yet, you know, we let murderers run free. We let, you know, attempt, certain people. And it's like, yeah, I get it. Guilty until or innocent until proven guilty. I'm not sure how much. I think if you are in a liminal area, between guilty or innocent, I don't think it should be either or. I don't think we need to presume your innocence, nor do we need to presume your guilt. I think you need to be in a in between. If you're still waiting on trial, unless you are caught red-handed, danger to the society or something to that effect, I think that's when we need to do house arrest, except for going back and forth to work, your ankle monitor. You need to do that. You go back and forth to work and that's it until you are proven guilty or until you are proven innocent and the ankle monitor is removed. I think, I think there's a lot of crimes, and I haven't really thought about this as just something, like basically petty theft. I think there should be some mechanism where the court system, through the fees that they get paid every month for whatever BS, pays the individual, when they're rewarded a settlement, say like with my bike, oh, he stole, and if they can't recover the bike itself and get it back to me in a working, right. Well, hear me out. In a working order, the court pays me what that thing was worth. And then that person does community service, does something that pays the court system back what the court system just paid out. Instead of having these stupid, ineffectual, oh, we're going to award you, $1 million, and yet nobody ever sees any of the money. Also, if you're found to have, lied or done something like that, say you owe 3 times the amount that you just took from the court system. So now you have to pay that back. Oh my God. So when I worked at the convenience store in Portland, we had this group of kids come in. They were out of high school, but they weren't 21. They were in that area. They drove their truck up, and like 2 or 3 guys were sitting in the back. They backed the truck to the front doors, parked illegally, because we always had that spaced out area for the handicap on either side. So you had the striped area that you couldn't park in, but they backed it up there. They dropped the tailgate. I mean, like, I could tell that this was a beer run. And I had already told my manager that putting the beer right in front of the double doors, where people could just grab and run, was a dumbass idea. Like, literally, they could just grab an 18-pack and bolt, because it was all bottles. And luckily, earlier that night, somebody had left some groceries that they couldn't afford or something. I can't remember exactly, but it was stuff I hadn't actually had a chance to put back on the rack. One of those things was a can of Campbell's cream of mushroom soup, like the old condensed soup can. And I see them back up, and I heft that can. Now, technically, what I did was wrong. But those kids jump out, run into the store, and I see the first guy grab, and he turns and starts going. I throw that can of soup at the side of his head, knock him sideways in front of the door so he blocks it. His buddies land into him. They all drop their stuff, and I say, put the beer back, and I won't call the cops. They put the beer back. They picked up their buddy, who was still a little dazed, but he was talking. He was fine. And they left. And so I walked over. I put up a sign, that said, please use other door. And I locked one side of the doors. Yes, they tried to do a literal beer run. See, back when I was a kid, a beer run meant you were not paying for it and you were running out the door. Not because you needed more beer for a party and you were actually paying for it. But we had double doors, so I locked one side. And that really stopped anybody trying to do a beer run after that. I mean, that's just, I started after 10 o'clock at night, locking one of the doors. And I would have the door closest to the register open while the other one was locked down. And I always put up a, please use other door sign. That meant they were close enough for me to reach out and grab if they tried to run to where the register was. No, these guys literally backed a truck up. And I mean, I'm going to say that a lot of petty thieves are because they don't have anything. And that's a large portion. And I think it's more due to the discrepancy in wealth in the United States and many other places, but I can only speak for the United States. That discrepancy has gotten out of hand. When the bottom 80% of people barely reach poverty, you have 10% above poverty, and it goes in gradations all the way up to the 1%, which are so super wealthy, you can't even think. I mean, we can't even comprehend. And I think that's where a lot of the crime comes from, whether it's drug related, whether it's violence related. It's people being mad, and they're mad at the wrong things. They get angry because of racism. They get angry because of this. But in reality, it's the inequality in wealth. I guess just to take it back to the beginning. And if we could just have some basis, some flatline basis of what is good for all, just enough for everybody to have so that we can just live. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I'd be willing to pay taxes on that. Oh, no. See, well, I guess that depends on what you mean, the age of access to alcohol, because I think we need to take it back down to 18. If you're an adult, if you are legally an adult, you should be treated as such. Once you reach 18, you should be legal to do pretty much everything. Anything an adult can do, enter contracts. There should be no age discrimination even allowed in like insurance. Some places won't insure a professional driver if they're under 25. If they're an adult, that's fine, but we also need to hold them accountable for their actions. Because I think that's what's happening with a lot of kids these days. They don't really see the consequences of their actions because we keep pushing it back. We keep saying, oh, you're not old enough. Oh, you're not mature enough. Because we're not treating them like adults. Well, and that's my experience, is actually a lot of the homeless I knew chose to be. Right. See, and that's what I'm saying is that because you choose, because you teach them. Well, I'm pretty sure if his company's intelligent enough, they basically just don't fight it. If somebody's going to steal from you, just don't fight it. You've got the cameras, you got everything. Give them what they want and let them go. Because they'll get caught by the police eventually, maybe. And I've met homeless people that needed a chance. And if I had the ability, I've given a couple of them a chance and got them on their feet, and we moved on. Homelessness isn't always a choice. Right? I am dumb, especially when I was younger. I actually told this story to Raven that he read. But yeah, I was held up at gunpoint once. Yeah, they legit told me that too. But see, I had a decision to make when the guy had the gun to my head. He didn't wear a mask. So my assumption is that I wasn't going to survive this if I gave him the cash. And in Portland at the time, there was at the time, convenience store was more dangerous than police because of how often they were getting robbed. And mine was only attempted robbery twice. The beer run and this guy. Well, I was fast enough because I was at one point a martial artist. I was in my 20s. And I slapped this guy's gun back around onto himself. I had it pointed right back at his own neck. I told him, go ahead, pull the trigger. Or you can drop it. And he dropped it. It landed on the counter. Thankfully, it wasn't cocked, so it didn't go off, which is probably why I told him to drop it. I grabbed the gun, slid it underneath the counter, and I yanked him right across my counter, threw him on the floor, and stepped on him. Right, put my foot right on his neck. I didn't put it a whole lot of pressure, just enough to feel if he ever tried to move, and then I called the cops. The cops showed up. Because I had reported it as an attempted robbery, they assumed that the person got away. Well, I was able to tell, the cops, show up. It's like, all right, what's he look like? And I look down and I start describing the guy that my foot's on. The cop looks over the counter and he calls his partner over. He's like, man, you got to look at this. There's a guy. So they cuff him and he's like, you're not supposed to do that. I'm like, well, yeah, but when he had a loaded gun to my head, like literally touching me. And he wasn't wearing a mask. I assumed I was dead either way, so I had to take the chance. Now, had he stood back, had he had a mask on, you're damn skippy, I would have given him the money. But when it was between, I had to take the chance if I was going to die anyway. And, I wish, we had camera of it, but my boss immediately erased it so I didn't get fired and gave me a week suspension with pay. So basically gave me a week vacation, but I was technically punished in the books. Because that was completely against company policy. Right? Okay, yeah, true. Yeah, literally was able to arrest him. The guy was literally admitting that what he did. And that was the funny part. I had scared the crap out of him so bad that he was immediately, yeah, I did it. Yeah, get me away from this crazy guy. Come to find out, the gun didn't have any bullets in it. I didn't know that. All I knew was that I had a gun to my head. I had to assume that I was dead if I didn't do something. And I think that's the problem. A lot of times, like, I would never suggest anybody to do that. Flat out. It was dumb. I should have just taken my chances. But again, I didn't know. I was a dumb kid, and I knew I could take him in a physical fight. You know how in a lot of cash wraps or back behind the registers, you're standing on something? Yes. And frankly, I am a survivor. I've proven that more times than I can count to myself that my situation, I will do everything possible to survive. I'm not afraid of getting hurt in the process, but I guarantee you I will make sure I will do the best I can do. But I just realized it's about that time. Oh, I hope you all have had a nice night. I've had a good day. I have had a damn good day. And topping it off with talking with you peeps, so much fun. Oh, it's not like you haven't heard that one before, Jade. At least 200 or 300 times, because I love that story. Right? Oh, yeah. The fishing was great. Oh, I love that game. That stupid Gone Fishing game. I cannot explain how stupid fun it is. I hope people watching it have as much fun, because it sure as hell is fun for me. But anyway, you all have a wonderful night. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And I hope to see you here tomorrow. Don't forget, Ghost is playing Grounded at 7? No, 5. That's right. You're starting at 5. My time. So make sure to stop over there. And after he's done, I should be starting up at 9. And this is all in Central Time. So you all have a wonderful night. See you later.